Have you ever noticed this strange pattern? The moment your bank account has a little more than your usual paycheck, a bonus, a side gig payment, a gift, something inside you triggers an invisible alarm. You suddenly need to upgrade your phone, your car mysteriously breaks down and needs repairs, or you decide that right now is the perfect time to invest in some sketchy crypto project your coworker mentioned. And like magic, within a week or two, your balance returns to its familiar, comfortable zero, maybe even a slight negative. You exhale. The anxiety fades. You think you're just unlucky or that you're bad with money? Here's the truth that's going to make you uncomfortable. You're not a failure. You're subconsciously terrified of having real money, and your brain is doing everything it can to get rid of it, protecting you from a threat that exists only in your head. Drop a number in the comments right now. The amount of money that, when you see it in your bank account, makes you feel an unexplainable anxiety. $5,000? $20,000? $100,000? Be honest, I read every single comment. Today we're going to break down the psychology of poverty and understand why you are the one blocking your own path to wealth, not theoretically, but grounded in real research from behavioral economics and neuropsychology. My name is Timmy. Over the past 5 years, I've studied over 200 research papers in behavioral economics and the neuropsychology of money. I went from a guy who couldn't save $200 to an investor with a portfolio that grows on autopilot. I make this channel so you don't have to spend years making the same mistakes I did. If you're tired of your income hitting an invisible ceiling, hit that subscribe button. It's time to understand how that ceiling actually works. Let's start with a fundamental concept. Every single one of us has an invisible financial thermostat hardwired into our brain. Imagine a room where the thermostat is set to 68 degrees. If you open a window in winter, the temperature drops, and the heating kicks in at full power to bring it back to 68. If summer hits and it gets too hot, the AC turns on to cool the room back to 68. Your financial life works on the exact same principle. Psychologist and researcher Brad Klontz, one of the leading specialists in financial psychology, described this mechanism in his work on money scripts, unconscious beliefs about money that form in childhood and control our behavior for our entire lives. If your thermostat is set at, say, $3,000 a month and you lose your job, you start hustling like crazy, taking any work you can find, cutting every expense, and your internal heating system drags you back to that $3,000. You survived. But here's where it gets really interesting. When the temperature exceeds your norm, let's say you suddenly make $15,000 in a month, your thermostat registers an anomaly. The deep structures of your brain, the ones responsible for sensing safety, the amygdala and the insular cortex, start sending signals. This isn't our normal. Something's wrong. Get rid of it. And your financial AC kicks in. You start making impulsive, irrational decisions until you've burned through the surplus and you're back to your safe, familiar $3,000. By the way, this is backed by hard data. The National Endowment for Financial Education conducted a study and found that roughly 70% of lottery winners lose all their money within a few years. 70%. That's not bad luck. That's a thermostat ruthlessly dragging people back to their normal. But why does this thermostat even exist? To understand that, we need to go a layer deeper into how our psyche is actually wired. We are social animals. Our brains were shaped in an environment where belonging to a group was literally a matter of life and death. Psychologist Matthew Lieberman at UCLA showed in his research that social rejection activates the same brain regions as physical pain. Literally, being cast out of a group to your brain feels like getting punched. Now think about it. If you suddenly have significantly more resources than the people around you, your brain flags this as a potential threat of exile. You become visible, you're different, you're breaking the unspoken rules of the group, and your subconscious launches a defense mechanism. Get rid of the excess, return to normal, stay one of us. Corporations and marketers understand this vulnerability brilliantly. They know that the moment you have extra money, you experience subconscious stress, and they graciously offer you hundreds of ways to relieve that stress. A new car on credit, designer clothes, status consumption. They're not selling you things, they're selling you a return to your zone of financial calm, back to being broke. But neurobiology is only the first layer. The real enemy is much closer. It's the people around you. Let me tell you a story. I had an old friend. Let's call him Alex. Alex and I grew up in the same neighborhood, went to the same schools, and for a long time worked similar dead-end jobs, living paycheck to paycheck. We were brothers in arms in this endless war against being broke. We'd sit in his kitchen at night, drink cheap beer, and complain about our bosses, the government, and the economy. It bonded us. Our shared financial struggle was the foundation of our friendship. But then I started studying investing. I started setting money aside. My capital started growing. I stopped going to bars every weekend because that money was going into index funds. And you know what happened? Alex didn't celebrate for me. He started pulling away.
First, it was innocent jokes. Oh, look at Wall Street Timmy over here too good for regular beer now? Then came the passive aggression. Sure, it's easy for you to talk about investments. You're not living in the real world anymore. This is a classic phenomenon that social psychologists call horizontal aggression, or in everyday language, the crab in a bucket effect. If you put one crab in a bucket, it'll climb out easily. But if you put several in there, none of them will escape. The moment one tries to climb out, the others grab it with their claws and pull it right back down. Your friends, your family, your coworkers, many of them genuinely love you. But here's what you need to understand. Your financial growth can trigger intense internal discomfort in them because your success involuntarily holds up a mirror to their own inaction. If you, someone from the same neighborhood with the same education, managed to break out, then their excuses stop working. It means it's not just the system. And to avoid feeling that pain, they will, often unconsciously, try to pull you back down. Why are you saving? You only live once. All that investing stuff is a scam. You'll lose everything. Money changes people. You've become different. Here's one of the biggest reasons you're afraid of real money. You're afraid of social rejection. You're afraid of becoming a stranger among your own people. Deep down, you think, if I get rich, Alex will stop talking to me. I'll lose my tribe. Remember Lieberman's research? For your brain, losing your group is physical pain, and your brain will do anything to avoid that pain. So when an opportunity opens up to double your income or invest in a promising asset, you sabotage the deal yourself. You show up late to the important meeting. You forget to submit the application. You do everything to stay the regular, relatable, broke guy. You choose poverty to buy social approval. But let's dig even deeper. This next part might be uncomfortable, but it's the most valuable thing you'll hear today. The third reason for your fear is the romanticization of struggle. We live in a culture that glorifies suffering. Watch movies, read books. The rich are almost always greedy, amoral villains. The poor are honest, noble heroes fighting injustice. Researchers at Cambridge University showed that our core money beliefs are formed by age 7. 7. You couldn't even read properly yet, and your brain had already written the program, rich people are bad, poor people are good, money is dirty, wanting too much is shameful. And now, 20 years later, you're a grown adult who has built an entire identity around the struggle against being broke. You're proud of how masterfully you can stretch $50 until payday. You're proud of working 3 jobs, 14 hours a day. Your exhaustion has become your badge of honor. Ask yourself right now and try to answer honestly. Who are you without your financial problems? If tomorrow you had $500,000 in your account and you no longer needed to fight for survival, what would you talk about with your coworkers? What would you complain about? What would be the purpose of your life if you no longer needed to constantly plug holes in your budget? For many people, losing their financial problems is scarier than losing their job
because the problems give them meaning, a sense of mission, a feeling that they're fighting something. I see this constantly in the comments. People write, "Timmy, inflation is eating everything. It's impossible to save even 10%. And what I hear in that isn't an argument. I hear relief. Relief that they don't have to try. Let me be clear about something. I'm not saying systemic problems don't exist. Inflation is real. Stagnant wages are real. An unfair distribution of resources is real. I'm not going to pretend that everything depends on the right mindset. But here's what I know for certain. Within any economic reality, no matter how tough, there are people with the exact same starting conditions who find a way out, and those who don't. The difference between them is usually not circumstances. It's the internal barriers we're talking about right now. Real money requires a transformation. You have to stop being a victim of circumstances and become the architect of your own life. Psychologists call this shifting from an external locus of control to an internal one, when you stop believing your life is determined by outside forces and start seeing yourself as the main player. Research consistently shows that people with an internal locus of control earn more, save more, and feel significantly happier. But this shift is essentially the death of your old identity, and ego death is one of the most terrifying processes for the human psyche. Your brain prefers the familiar discomfort of being broke to the terrifying unknown of being wealthy, because poverty is territory you know. Wealth is terra incognita, where anything could go wrong. So, the diagnosis is in 3 layers of fear. Neurobiology that treats extra money as a threat, a social environment that pulls you back, and your identity as a noble survivor that makes being broke part of who you are. How do we reprogram the financial thermostat? I'm not going to give you esoteric nonsense about mirror affirmations and visualizing streams of abundance. That's not backed by a single serious study. Instead, we're going to use 3 tools grounded in real behavioral science. Tool number 1, invisible accumulation. This principle comes from the work of Richard Thaler and Cass Sunstein, a Nobel laureate and his co-author, on so-called nudges, gentle pushes toward better decisions. The idea is simple. Don't fight your brain, outsmart it. When your income starts to grow, you do not change your lifestyle, not one bit. You create an automatic barrier between the money you see and the money that works for you. On payday, 20% automatically transfers to a separate investment account that you don't have quick access to. No linked debit card, no instant withdrawal. Your brain continues to see the familiar, normal amount in your checking account. The thermostat stays calm. The alarm doesn't trigger. You keep living the way you've been living, but in the background, your wealth is growing. My buddy Jake, a software developer in Austin, set up an auto transfer of 15% of his paycheck 3 years ago. He told me himself how one day he opened his brokerage account and found $38,000 sitting there. He had literally forgotten he was saving. His brain never got the chance to sabotage him because the money left before he could see it and spend it. If you're thinking, I don't have 20% to spare, start with 5% or 3% or $50. The amount doesn't matter. What matters is the automation. You launch the system, and it works without your involvement, which means without your brain's sabotage. Tool number 2, controlled environment migration. You don't need to dramatically cut off your old friends. That would be cruel and pointless. But you need to do 2 things. First, institute an unspoken embargo on financial complaining in your conversations. If the talk slides into the usual, everything's terrible, economy's tanking, we're all screwed, you gently change the subject. You don't argue, you don't preach, you don't try to convert anyone, you just stop participating in the ritual of collective helplessness. Second, and this is critical, you start deliberately seeking out people for whom your financial goals are their past. If saving $1,000 feels like a huge achievement to you, you need people for whom investing $10,000 a month is boring routine. This isn't snobbery, it's neurobiology. Research shows that our brains automatically calibrate what we consider normal based on our immediate environment. It's the same mechanism that makes you start picking up an accent when you move to a different region. Your financial thermostat works the same way. It adjusts to the temperature in the room. When you're in an environment where your income level is the lower end of normal, your brain starts looking for ways to level up on its own. Not from stress, but from a natural drive to fit in with the group. Use the herd instinct to your advantage. Where do you find these people? Investment communities, business meetups, mastermind groups, even online forums and Discord servers. Start with the internet if that's all you have. The golden rule: you should feel slightly uncomfortable with the level of conversation. If you understand everything and feel like the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Tool number 3, expanding your financial capacity. This is the most subtle tool, and it works not through spending money, but through contact with numbers. Your task is to gradually train your nervous system to accept that large sums are not a threat. Here's a specific exercise that I did myself and that I recommend to everyone. Open any investment calculator. There are dozens of free ones online. Enter an amount you can realistically set aside each month, even if it's just $100. Set the average annual return at 10%. Set the time horizon to 20 years. Look at the final number. Now don't close the calculator. Sit with that number. Notice what happens in your body. Most likely you'll feel a slight discomfort, maybe disbelief, maybe an inner voice saying, "That's not for you," or "That's too good to be true." That is your thermostat in action. You're watching in real time as your brain rejects the possibility of wealth. Do this exercise once a week. Each time, slightly increase the monthly contribution. After a month or two, you'll notice that numbers that used to trigger anxiety have become neutral. Your brain is adapting. The capacity is expanding. Advanced level: try physically being in an environment that your brain associates with wealth. Walk into the lobby of the nicest hotel in your city and order a $7 coffee. Go to an open house in a luxury neighborhood. Not to buy anything, but so your nervous system gets the signal, "I am in a space of real money and nothing bad is happening to me." This works on the same principle as exposure therapy for phobias. If someone's afraid of heights, a therapist doesn't make them skydive on day 1. They start with photos, then the 2nd floor, then the 5th. Gradually, the brain stops treating height as a mortal threat. With money, same logic. Let's recap. 3 tools. First, invisible accumulation. Automate your money into a place where your brain can't sabotage it. Second, controlled environment migration. Stop feeding collective poverty and start absorbing the norms of people who are already where you want to be. Third, expanding your financial capacity. Regularly expose your brain to large numbers and wealthy environments until it stops panicking. The psychology of poverty is not the absence of money in your wallet. It's a program running in your head that was written without your consent, by your childhood, by your environment, by your culture. But programs can be rewritten. Thermostats can be recalibrated. Right now, you're standing at a fork in the road. You can close this video and go back to your familiar life, back to the familiar conversations, familiar complaints, familiar anxiety before the bills are due. Your brain will thank you for it. It loves the familiar. But every day that you choose the comfort of the familiar, you're postponing the life you could be living, not in 20 years, right now. Or you can take the first step today, right after this video. Open your banking app and set up an auto transfer, any amount, even $50. Not tomorrow, not Monday, now. Because your brain is already coming up with reasons why now isn't the right time. That is the thermostat talking. Don't let it win. You will lose some people along the way. That's the truth, and I'm not going to lie to you. But here's what I've discovered. The people you lose when you start growing, they're not losses. They're a filter. The ones who truly care about you will be happy for you. The rest didn't love you, they loved your company in their own misery. On the other side of that discomfort is freedom, not the abstract freedom from motivational posters, but concrete, tangible freedom, money that lets you stand up and walk out of a place that doesn't respect you, the ability to say no to a toxic boss without worrying about feeding yourself.
the confidence that your family will be safe no matter what happens to the economy. Stop being afraid. See you in the next video.